Your sales team is losing deals they should be closing today because they're too focused on handling objections and sexy one-liner talk tracks. As a result, tens of thousands of dollars of deals is going into the graveyard of your pipeline to never be sold by you or your team and to eventually get sold by your competitors instead. In this video, we're going to stop that from happening. If you don't know who I am, my name is Drew Long. I run the company Sales by Tomorrow. In the past, I've helped scale sales teams up to $81 million per year in profit, and I've helped individual salespeople average over 70% close rate for 14 months on a B2C offer. The real problem, my dear friends, is what I like to call decision architecture. Most salespeople don't lose deals because they can't handle objections. They lose deals because they can't control the decision. If as a business owner, you're not controlling the decision that your prospects make, you can't control your P&L. In this video, we're going to show you how to control both using something I'm not seeing anyone else on YouTube or in the sales training space talking about right now. In my coaching practice with both B2B and B2C sales teams, I review 20 to 30 live calls per week. Over the last 4 weeks, it was particularly intense. I reviewed over 100 live sales calls. So it's safe to say, and it's across both B2B and B2C, it's safe to say I have a pretty good finger on the pulse of what salespeople are doing right now and how they're screwing up in a way that's costing you as a business owner money. What I heard in the last 4 weeks was devastating, both to individual wallets and to company P&Ls. Smart sellers, good communication, knew how to handle an objection, know how to present a product, and they were bleeding money on calls, not because they were bad at sales, but because they didn't understand something fundamental, something I call decision architecture. Now, what is decision architecture, Drew, you might ask? Well, today I'm going to pull back the curtain and show you behind the curtain how decision architecture is actually the invisible structure that makes someone say yes, and how we'd applied it across a construction company in Germany, real estate brokerage in the US, selling B2C, a SaaS cohort founder, and a B2B hiring and recruiting placement firm. Their sales woes were solved, not with scripts, with tonality, or with better objection handling talk tracks, or with bleeding heart therapy sessions that ended after 2 hours and lots of tears, but with structure. Now, here's what I mean when I talk about structure. Something I call directional discovery, temporal framing, and consequences before close. If you fix just these 3 things like I'm about to teach you, your close rate will go up and the income will follow. So part 1, directional discovery. I'm going to tell you a story about a Spanish translator. I'm reviewing a call with the team. Picture this, we're screen sharing, everyone's watching. The prospect is a construction company owner. And he says, when I need to have important conversations with my Spanish-speaking employees, I just call my brother-in-law in to translate. I've had to do that twice in the last year. Pause. I stop the recording right there. I ask the team, what did you guys hear? Silence. And then someone says, he needs someone fluent in Spanish. No, he just admitted he's running a business through a family favor. He's risking miscommunication in high-stakes conversations. He's uncomfortable, and he's been doing it for at least the last year, maybe longer. That's not information, that's pressure. But it's not sales pressure coming from the salesperson. It's pressure that this prospect is putting on his own shoulders because he realizes he's taking on tremendous legal and potentially reputational risk by running this scheme. So what did the rep do? He asked, have you had trust issues with employees in the past? Wrong. Fork. So I stopped the call and said, every question you guys ask is a fork in the road. And most salespeople are going to take the scenic route. And that is the hidden killer of close rates. It isn't enough, guys, to gather information in discovery. You have to gather the right information, the pertinent information, the information that will give the prospect emotional leverage on themselves to get out of the bad situation they're in and make a better decision about their life or their business. If you run a team, I guarantee you that right now your sales people are chasing their curiosity on calls rather than chasing the consequences for the prospect. Wasting time in discovery, gathering irrelevant information rather than information that moves the ball down the field towards the end zone. Or they're effectively exploring colorful side streets instead of staying on the straight and narrow highway to closed won status. Guys, some key misinformation I need to correct right here. Discovery is not about information gathering. Discovery is about pressure building. The best setters, the best closers don't ask more questions, they ask better questions. They choose better forks in the conversational road. So you might be asking, Drew, what is a better fork? The fork that leads to tension on the prospect, tension that they can only release by choosing to solve their problems. That's what expert salespeople do. They get paid to load up tension and not release it. They force the prospect to get in a situation where the prospect has to release the tension by making a decision. And if the prospect chooses not to release the tension, that's fine, but it's the salesperson's job to load it up. So here's what directional discovery actually means. When the prospect reveals, your job is not to explore everything. Your job is not to make them feel better about their pain. Here's what the rep should have asked. Oh, how long has this been going on that you've been using your brother to stand into your business? to handle important conversations in Spanish. How many times have you had to call your brother-in-law in total? Oh, what happens if something gets misinterpreted or mistranslated? Ever had a problem because of this? Has anything ever blown up? Or how long do you think this will keep working? Now the problem is expanding. Now the cost is surfacing. Now urgency is forming. So if you're a salesperson, stop asking interesting questions and start asking tense questions. So directional discovery sounds like, how long has that been costing you? What has that already affected? When you said that was difficult, how did you mean exactly by difficult? What happens if this continues? How long do you want to let this just continue to go on? Your income is directly tied to your ability to choose the right fork in the road, and the right conversational pathway to go down is invariably the one that makes you as a seller uncomfortable or makes you scared. Scared equals emotional stakes equals tension equals money. Money follows tension in sales. It's that simple. Most reps just wander around in a sales call, asking questions that come to mind or questions that are on their script. The elites will tunnel through bedrock to get to the truth. To really key on this, guys, it takes years of pattern recognition. It's one of my benefits, one of the things that helps me assess sales teams because I've listened to over 20,000 individual sales calls over 12 years. I have a lot of pattern recognition. The difference between an amateur ear and a professional ear is massive, but the good news is it can be trained. So that's the first structural change. The next structural change I want you guys to understand is temporal framing. Most objections are time traveling, and most salespeople don't even notice. Here's what I mean. This is the time traveling trap. This is a different team in a different industry that I was coaching. We're reviewing a brokerage call, and the salesperson asks, oh, what would happen in, say, 6 months if you don't fix this? Which sounds like a good sales question, right? You've probably heard that on other YouTube guru videos, but that's wrong because hypothetical pain doesn't move money. I stopped the call and I said, don't go future, go past. Not how much will happen in 6 months if you don't fix this. Ask him what has already happened in the last 6 months while you were busy not fixing this problem. Most sales training is going to tell you, oh, paint the dream, paint the nightmare, sell the vacation destination, but don't sell the plane flight. Here's what actually moves someone to act: accumulated pain. People act more decisively on accumulated pain than hypothetical pain. Future pain is abstract. We can make believe it's not going to happen. Past pain is real, and present pain is undeniable. Of the pain stack, present pain is the best type of pain to get. When is someone motivated to go to the doctor? When they're bleeding out. When is someone going to go to the emergency room? When they can't sleep because the pain is so bad. That is present pain. You cannot deny it. You cannot rationalize it away. You cannot pretend it doesn't exist. It's there. It's in your face. It consumes your mind. So the power of past pains. You've probably heard the adage, if someone is happy, they talk about the future. If someone is sad, they talk about the past. If someone is content, they talk about the present. Well, so what would be the point of having all our sellers focus on future pain? Because even if you can get someone to admit that things are potentially going to be bad in the future, our inherent optimism as humans is going to blind us to the emotional impact of that. This is, by the way, also why humanity has such a problem with hyperobjects or long-term painful problems such as a declining birth rate or climate change. But we really take on board the pain of the past and the regrets therein. When reps go future heavy, the buyer stays intellectual, the conversation is theoretical, the pain is theoretical, and the urgency feels fake or forced. When reps go past heavy, the pain surfaces, the frustration resurfaces, the emotional cost gets very tangible, and the buyer starts self-convincing, which is what you want. That is a complete energy shift. Again, hypothetical pain just educates. Accumulated pain moves the money. A lot of sales training will have you guys focus on the dream outcome, but what you really need to be consistently focused on is the emotional pain of past regrets. Real estate brokerage call, majoring in minor things. Here's another call. The prospect was stuck on platform fees. They were like, oh, well, you guys have this platform. Well, I have a platform already. You guys, I don't need yours. The rep debated the fee. That's amateur hour. If the problem costs them $200,000 a year and your platform fees are $199 a month, why are we debating $200? They don't have a $200 problem, they have a $200,000 problem. But the rep in that call never fully established that the $200,000 problem was real. So the prospect got away with making an objection based on platform fees. I've seen infinite such examples of reps getting sucked into majoring in minor things on the calls. When the prospect is focused on the trees instead of the forest, they stay lost in the woods. The mistake is getting into pitching your solution and its costs before the prospect internally decides doing nothing is more expensive than whatever it will cost me to fix it. So instead of what happens if this continues, it should have been, how much revenue have you missed because of this? How many deals slipped? What did that cost you in dollars? Now, if we get those answers, we're no longer in theory. Now we're actually in regret, and regret is powerful. Let me give you another example. Let's say you're selling recruiting or hiring services to a CEO, as one of my clients does. And he says, I'm currently doing this all myself, or it's just not getting done if I don't do it. Simply ask, What's your hourly value within the business? He will dimensionalize it. He will quantify it. He needs to realize that is an active choice he makes every day to invest his hours, his money in the problem. Every solution you sell, of course, has a cost. What most sellers fail at is that tallying up of the current and past investment of just accepting the problem. Look, the first time that your prospect hears dollar figures in a sales call needs to be dollar figures around the current problem. They need to anchor their pain to the dollar figure they're already expending on the current problem, not anchoring it to the cost of your solution. If they hear your solution first, they will anchor their pain to the cost of your solution. If they hear their problem first, they will anchor their pain to the cost of their problem. That's what you want. So knowing that, proceed accordingly. Now we're talking about temporal framing. What does temporal framing means? Future pain is hypothetical, past pain is evidence, and present pain is emotional. If you want urgency, a lot of people ask me, Drew, how do I create urgency? My prospects aren't urgent. They're not closing fast enough. They don't have any urgency. Well, here's how you build urgency. You have to anchor them to how long it's existed, what it has already cost them, and what frustration has accumulated as a result of them not taking any action. Stop forecasting disaster. They don't believe you anyway. They don't believe bad things will happen to them. None of us do. Start making them review their credit card statement. Hopefully you know what I mean when I say that. Whenever you take out your credit card statement and look at it, if you're like most consumers, there's a lot of pain of like, I really spent money on that. Oh, why did I buy that? I don't need that. That's a subscription I haven't used in 6 months. Make them review their credit card statement. I promise that is the power of temporal framing. Now, let's talk about structural challenge number 2. Stop trying to scare them with the future. Start helping them calculate the past. If you can't attach or you haven't attached numbers or consequences to their past problems, you have no leverage at the close, and you should not even go into the pitch. So this leads us naturally into part 3, consequences before close. One team I coach, the rep was pitching after just 12 to 15 minutes of discovery. Now, I don't know what world you guys live in, but under no circumstances in my world is a 12 to 15 minute discovery worthwhile for most products or services. Every time the objection comes down to price after you pitch too quickly. But the issue isn't price, it's structure. So my coaching was not handle the objections better. It was you didn't build the consequences before you pitched. So here's the real problem. Presenting a solution before the prospect internally concludes doing nothing is more expensive than whatever these guys are going to charge me. Without that internal conclusion and that internal move, every price feels high and it's too much to pay. Every objection feels valid, and every let me think about it or adding more time to the deal to think about it seems super reasonable. If you build the consequences before you pitch, then price becomes relative to a very high cost of inaction, delay becomes expensive, and thinking about it or adding more time starts feeling irresponsible. We're no longer objection handling, guys. Now we are decision engineering. So here's what to actually do next. Most salespeople and most leaders of companies that employ salespeople think that the salesperson's job is to build rapport, ask questions, present solutions, and then handle objections. Not true at all. Again, that's amateur architecture. Decision architecture, as opposed to amateur architecture, is control the direction with discovery, all right? By choosing a fork in the conversation and choosing which pertinent information to gather from the prospect. Your discovery is not just about length, it's not just about volume of questions, it's about asking the very most useful questions you can ask in a limited amount of time, probably under 26 minutes, to get the best information out of the prospect that's gonna help you create the tension they need to make a decision. Number 2 is temporal framing. Past and accumulated pain is more persuasive than potential future pain, which nobody thinks is going to materialize anyway. And then consequences before the close. Do not pitch unless you've built awareness of their active choice to continue supporting the problem. And make sure they're not okay with this, then you get to pitch. So identify, contrast, quantify damage, translate pain into dollars, make inaction feel active. Change doesn't happen at the end of the call. Guys, it happens when the prospect realizes that inaction is an active and costly choice. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you need more help than this video can possibly provide, then look in the description below for some helpful links and we'll see what we can do. Happy selling.